as we see in the presentation also, and Jake, I'll come to you. As we see in the presentation, a lot has happened over the last, I would say, only 2 or 3 years. We see the significant growth in terms of the numbers we see from the size of the marketplace or the solutions that are published, and we expect more to come in the coming years also. And as per the Zinnov estimates, more than 60% of the Forbes Cloud 100 providers to be active marketplace sellers by 2025. What triggered such a shift in just last 2 years? What happened over the last 2, 3 years that we see a significant shift and we see a boom in the marketplace, cloud marketplace?
From my perspective, most of the growth in the marketplace and what we see today is really on the backs of a pretty simple value prop. And honestly, still a fairly narrow set of product categories. So the kind of the core of it is, on the customer side, is a desire to draw down on their consumption commitments, and on the seller side, especially in kind of core horizontals, it's like apps and infra, is the recognition that marketplace is a place that they can go to access budget that they had not had previously had a command of, which was that pre-committed cloud spend, and then the ability to kind of reach in and transact it somewhat quickly. Some of the information that's been shared with us from some of the ISVs we work with is they see significantly bigger deal sizes and faster deal cycles when they go through marketplace, just because of the digital convenience, and then on top of that, being able to access that committed budget. So it's that core value prop and the advent of private offers, which has really allowed this to scale up. So it's pretty simple. Like there's nothing too exotic happening here. This is as old fashioned as accessing new sources of budget and being able to do so with less cost. And I think what's happening is that more and more people, both on the customer and the ISV side, are realizing this opportunity is open to them, and that's what's driven the growth.
Great. Yeah, I see. I agree with that. We see the significant growth across the solutions that are available and also from the enterprise side. And Kieran, if we come to you, the enterprise's adoption of the cloud is at a very high, and we are witnessing the adoption scale across various aspects of their business. To achieve this, the need for a streamlined investment approach, the simplified deployment, is ever so increasing. Is this one of the key drivers for the cloud marketplace growth, and how does marketplace assist customers in achieving this need?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would approach it from the perspective of, my lens is that I spent my whole career in financial services. So if you think about what their lifeblood is, and their lifeblood is to gather signal or create signal from a variety of different data sources, and what we've all seen is just the explosion in the data sphere, right? The amount of data, the amount of information that you can get, steps to the office badge swipes and things like that are now potentially available to you. And again, from a financial services perspective, to be able to make a decision, to be able to drive alpha. Well, what's happened is it's really difficult to source all that information. It's really difficult to figure out, where is the right data and what is available to me, and where the marketplaces have stepped in is to create those catalogs and to create those libraries, if you will, of information and services and applications that they can now do. If you think about the process of, I tend to oversimplify it, but it's really comes down to find, try, buy. And really where the marketplaces have stepped in is on the find and the try part of the process. And I think that's been, or what we've seen at Snowflake, that's where we see a major driver. And that's now extending to other industries that are waking up to, I need more insight, and I need more insight from a variety of different sources.
Yeah, and I'd love to add to that.
Sure.
I'd love to add to what Kieran and Jake had said as well. From the tackle side, we do the State of the Marketplace report, and we are seeing also part of that momentum of like why more marketplace is that the shift of the budget from going from an IT person over to the house of the chief financial officer, and that consolidated spend to say, how can we be more efficient with understanding all the products that we buy for our organization and centralizing that and being smarter about buying that through one central place, one marketplace. So we are seeing a huge shift in companies making those commitments to buy in a certain marketplace and then figure out all the products that they use based on the marketplaces being able to identify and list all of them to say, oh, we should buy all of these things that we're already buying now in a consolidated way through one source.
Great. And Erin, I think so, as Kieran also mentioned and Jake also mentioned, we are also witnessing a sea of change in the entire procurement cycle as well. While we see the several reasons such as the simplification of licensing, the discounts driving the cloud value, or the cloud spend are driving the change. As per you, which are the ones at the forefront of driving the growth of marketplace engagement, other than the points that you mentioned?
So Erin? Sorry, I was coming off of mute. I think that there is, once you get critical mass going through, you start to then get the benefits of the consolidated spend, of the simpler onboarding, the vendor consolidation, all of the things that marketplaces say, like buying in this way and changing the way you procure. You won't get that in the initial first, 1 to 5 or 5 to a few deal transactions. You need to start sending more deals through that way to start to really reap the benefits of that procurement efficiency and those efficiencies overall in your process. So more volume, you then seek more proficiencies, which I think is what they're starting to see. You get those first couple wins, you figure out how it works, and then you continue to streamline and optimize.
And then if you look at it from a different angle, and James, this is a question to you, look at from both the vendor and the customer experience front. Where do you see the immediate investments going in terms of personalizing the reward programs, the platform innovation, or the agile marketplace operations? So where do you see the maximum or the investments that are going?
Yeah, look, interesting question. I think this talk is probably going to really steer in the direction of AI for sure, because I see there being immediate investments in AI across all those areas, particularly around streamlining the onboarding process, improved algorithms for search, basically making it easy for people to discover and find the software they need. I think you also mentioned there was another question in the list beforehand around the different types of people who are going to be buying software through marketplaces as well. And while the decision is going to be made sometimes centrally, lots of people across organizations, depending on the size, are going to be using it. And they're going to be expecting a consumer level type of experience to buy the software they need. So it's going to need to be simple. And using AI to improve that experience, I think, is going to be a really big place of investment.
And Jake, as you're taking care of the go-to-market for the commercial marketplace, and we are seeing that vendors are focusing on innovative go-to-market strategies beyond just listing the product. That is where we see the private marketplaces coming up, where vendors can custom create offers for those specific enterprises or the customers. How do you see the go-to-market strategy evolving with the private marketplaces coming into prominence, which can offer personalization at buyer's front in terms of the product, billing, models, etc.? Where do you see that?
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, so where we stand now is, the marketplaces are really more of a procurement and transaction engine currently than they are at really hitting this potential of being a proper kind of discovery and consideration and kind of more consumer-like buying experience on the customer side. As we start to solve that, right? As this starts to look more consumer-like, that opens up a lot of flexibility and innovation for ISVs in terms of how they show up on that digital shelf. So in terms of merchandising their solutions, in terms of using advocates and people who are kind of close to like power users of that ISV to kind of help drive demand and drive consideration. I do agree with some of the ideas that have been expressed here around the role of AI in shaping the customer experience, and therefore that's going to have a pretty significant impact on how ISVs think about reaching their customers and think about kind of putting their best foot forward in that much more kind of digitally driven sales cycle. So I think the short of it is, as the customer experience starts to look more consumer-like, the go-to-market strategy and content and engagement tactics on the ISV side are going to look more B2C-like. And so I guess the good news is this is a pattern that we've already seen play out over the last 25 years of e-commerce, right? So we can take a lot of the lessons that we've learned over the last 25 years of B2C e-commerce and kind of selectively apply those lessons in B2B. Because at the end of the day, it's still people and it's still people spending money. And those people spending money want convenience and they want confidence. They've been getting it in their consumer lives for a long time. They haven't been getting it in B2B. So it's almost like a replication of that pattern, both on the customer and on the partner side.
I think so. That's a great point mentioned, Jake. And a follow-up question to you would be like, you touch upon it's like a digital experience of the customer from a discovery till the buying process, even the support function. But if you look at the current scenario, where do you see the maturity in terms of having that digital experience for the enterprises?
We're in the very early stage of this. Like I said, I make this comment a lot, which is we call them marketplaces, but they kind of look more like vending machines today. Like if you know what you want, you can go there and you can push the right buttons and make the thing come out. Yeah. But it is not does not drive a full customer decision journey. And I think it could. And I think that's where a lot of the potential comes in, where like, what if it did operate more like a marketplace? Marketplaces, unlike vending machines, are very social spaces. And these are places where, like, what if the marketplace gave the ability for customers to talk to one another and consult with one another on the types of challenges they're having? Like when you're a technologist like let's say you're a technologist in healthcare and you're looking for solutions to enhance the patient experience. What's the most valuable source of information for you as that technologist if you're trying to solve that problem? It's probably somebody else who's solved the problem before. So we talk a lot about AI, but if we can bring actual human intelligence and human interaction into the equation, we can open up a world where customers can consult with one another, share problems, share solutions, and then ultimately that leads to a more convenient and digital purchase path. So to answer your question directly, I think we are pretty sophisticated when it comes to the kind of transact and deploy, but when it comes to discovery and consideration, we have a long way to go in terms of evolving the experience to look more consumer-like. Now, it's not exactly like a consumer experience. It's still a much higher consideration, lower volume, and many more people involved in the decision process to buy technology. But we can apply, like I said before, we can apply lessons and patterns from the consumer world and figuring out how to get those discovery and consideration experiences kind of up the curve with respect to the maturity.
Great. Good to know
I
that,
totally.
Yeah, go ahead. Erin.
I was just gonna say, like, I totally agree with Jake in that we need to take that consumer experience and bring it to B2B, and I think that that's what you're going to see over the next couple of years around marketplaces and the involvement. Is we are still in the early days of like we're still building trust in the infrastructure, in the process, in that this is working and we can get the piping. The piping is built and we're putting water through it and we're getting comfortable with that. And as we get more comfortable with that, then as marketers and our go-to-market strategies will now start to be more robust in saying, I'm more comfortable bringing my community here and starting to create a community experience because now I trust the back office infrastructure of how this all works. And I figured out how to operationalize it inside my organization. And I trust the operational flow. So now I can start to layer in more robust go-to-market and start to build more community engagement to get that next experience that we're looking for out of the marketplaces.
I think that Jake touched upon from the, the hyperscaler perspective. And again, coming back to you, as you mentioned from the GTM strategy for the ISVs, what are you hearing from the ISVs when they think they come to you for the GTM strategy, how they consider the current marketplace in terms of the maturity? Are they able to offer what their wish list is, or do you see the gaps in that?
So when we first start to talk about go-to-market with the ISVs, we want to understand, like, what is your overall company goals and objectives? And how does your cloud strategy fit into that? It's one of the many strategies you have and how you're going to market. And so we want to understand how important that strategy is, how much investment your organization is going to be putting towards that. So then we can help you build the right go-to-market strategy with your cloud providers. And then we also want to understand which is your cloud provider that you've made a strategic investment in building with and really driving a strong value proposition with, so that we can then start to focus in on that unique cloud benefit. Each cloud provider has their own unique benefits, and we really want to make sure that you're customizing your messaging and understanding your TAM. And so I think the next step in all of the go-to-market is the TAM analysis. And how do we help them with data to understand your target audience has made these commitments, which commitments have they made, and now have they started to actually procure and transact through those commitments, and then help them see that information so that they can get smarter and stronger with how they're going to market and addressing their TAM with their cloud strategy.
Kieran, if I come to you, and it's a different perspective, we were touching upon the marketplace, the maturity of that. But as for you, do you still perceive gaps between a direct contract and the one that is facilitated through the marketplace? I will touch upon the point, like, would everything be transacted via marketplace? Then what will be the role of the field sales or the partnership alliances, etc.?
Yeah, I honestly see room for both. I don't see where one takes over the other. I think what we see is providers and partners coming to us and looking at the marketplace from the standpoint of, I have a well-defined application, I have a well-defined use case, and for that, I have a very well prescribed target audience and commercial model. So for that, I want to leverage marketplaces for low touch, high velocity, and so we see that occurring a lot, but then holding off on and to allow their salespeople to swoop in, if you will, as they have visibility into that transaction, to then come in and give a much more, for lack of a better term, white glove approach to further the upsell. So I don't think, or at least what we've seen so far, is not where partners are willing to cede all of the commercial model to a marketplace, but they see the opportunities for it in various pockets. They see it for, hey, I want to potentially go into a new market, but I don't want to spin up all the infrastructure in terms of salespeople to go do that. So I'm going to test market with a marketplace that gives me broad distribution, but I'm still going to hold back those high value, high margin, low volume deals for the sales force. So I think what they're doing, and what was mentioned earlier, is that it's part of a multi-channel distribution strategy, and you figuring out where that fits in. And so I see a place for both.
Yeah, I agree completely with you about, definitely see a role for both. I mean, there's going to be always really complicated low volume deals where, it's going to require that extra support, particularly, and then they will end up using the marketplace for sort of that more light touch, buying experience. For sure, we're seeing that as well.
James, to that point, if I ask you, as Kieran touched upon the low touch, high velocity, is that true for majorly the mid-market enterprises? Or do you see that for the large enterprises also, or the Fortune enterprises also?
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting. I mean, you can segment your customer base by the type of business that they're in, but also by the type of department or their buying habits. I think it's important for companies to sort of consider all of those as well, because some enterprise organizations, while they are enterprise, sometimes their buying behavior can be quite sporadic, and it also depends on how they buy their software. It doesn't always have to be centralized, and a lot of times it is decentralized, which means a marketplace that's consumer friendly, like we've talked about, becomes more and more important. I do think that there's a not a missed opportunity, but I'd say a large opportunity within the mid-market or SMB or smaller organizations wanting to use marketplaces and drive a lot of that growth. Because traditionally organizations, resellers particularly, they do focus on the bigger enterprise deals with salespeople because obviously they drive the most volume. But there's still a lot of smaller organizations that don't get that experience that they crave, I suppose. And I see a lot of opportunity there with marketplaces filling that gap.
I think it also depends on the product, right? It also depends on the product you're buying through the marketplace as to whether that is a low touch, high volume, self-serve type of a product versus this is an enterprise product. It takes an enterprise sales process, and marketplace will be at the end of our sales process where we go to do the transaction, because large enterprises have committed spend. They want to burn down their commitments. They want to consolidate what they're doing with certain key cloud providers. So I also think it's the technology that also drives that, as well as the buyers in the mid-market.
Just to complicate all of this even further, the other moving target is that the people who are in these roles within customers their buying habits are changing. I mean, I read, this is a while back, but there was an article that said 60% of buying decisions in the coming 5 years will be made by millennials. And that was a bit of a reminder, a wake-up call for me that millennials aren't 20 anymore. Like the millennials are 40.
I read the same article actually.
Yeah. And so this is a whole class of people that has had the expectation to be able to pull this out of their pocket and get anything they want in the world delivered to their door. Like they tap that thing 10 times and anything in the world shows up at their door within like 2 and 10 days. And so that consumer like expectation follows that cohort of people into the workplace. And so I think that what we'll start to see is the buying habits and expectations of the millennials and Gen Z are going to start to push for, obviously more digital convenience and a push for price transparency. So, I fully expect that we'll see over time higher and higher value being transacted in a more touchless manner, but also higher and higher value being transacted with less negotiation and greater price transparency because the consumers will demand it.
That's an interesting point, Jake, you mentioned. And then as you mentioned, the high value, low touch, and then the interesting point that you mentioned about the millennials. But as you see the complexity of the solutions or the transformation that is taking place, taking an example, SAP on the cloud, it's a complex solution for any enterprise. How it will change with the evolution of the marketplace? Do you see such heavy, high-touch transactions where it's more of the large enterprise applications and the complex models? Do you see those transactions taking place through marketplace going forward?
Transactions for sure, because like this is similar to what Erin was saying. There's a sales cycle to support discovery of unique requirements, to support how are we going to stand the thing up within the operating environment of the customer. That requires people to do. Right? I mean, that is complex stuff. But the thing being transacted through marketplace, that's already happening, right? That's the whole point about providing centralized visibility to spend, being able to draw down on the consumption commitment. I think what we'll start to see is possibly the emergence of more hybrid selling models where a lot of the discovery and consideration happens within the marketplace. There's a point at which a sales team becomes more actively involved, and then the transaction closes in the marketplace. And that's really akin to what's happening today. I mean, everybody's seen the studies that show just how much research is being done by customers before they even have the first conversation with the salesperson. So for me, part of the role of marketplace is to provide a more convenient and a more trusted place to do that pre-sale research, and then have the sales process be much more convenient and kind of facilitated by the marketplace. So again, it's kind of it's the natural evolution of patterns that we're already seeing in terms of buyer behavior.
Yeah, I think that hybrid model is a great comment in that there's still relationship selling happening. There's still co-selling that needs to happen. It's when are you introducing people into the process and ensuring that they have the right experience, they get the information they need to help them make those buying decisions, and then making the buying experience more of a consumer experience in our B2B environments.
And Erin, if I come to you, as you work very closely with the partners like the sellers, the publishers, and ISVs, they are increasingly getting drawn to the marketplaces as they see it as a fast-growing revenue channel and provides them with a broad pool of new potential customers. How do you continue to build this excitement amongst your partners?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first, just making sure everyone has that mindset of like, this is an infinite game that we're in. So it's going to constantly be evolving and growing and changing. So to keep that momentum going, you have to have that commitment and rigor, and to not just be like, we've arrived, and just check the box. It's like, this is an ongoing thing. And so you kind of always have to have those win stories, and making sure you're using those win stories and those use cases to reconfirm to your audience, both your customers and your sellers, that this model and this way of selling is working. So it's really important to vocalize your wins.
And then James, if I come to you, like if you look at and I think so we discussed also, but it would be to get your thoughts, in line with the procurement cycle transformation, the whole persona of enterprise customers is also changing drastically. Jake touched upon the millennials. But as for you, how is the buyer persona changing? Do you see there are new set of stakeholders now becoming buyers from different line of businesses or the different business functions? Do you see that change in the marketplace?
I wouldn't say we see it change. I think it might have always been there, but I think it's definitely becoming more decentralized from our perspective. There's a lot of different areas having different specialized software needs. So it's not always the IT department holding the budget or procurement signing off the full budget and IT making the decisions on behalf of everyone. I mean, we're going to throw a couple of buzzwords out, but product-led growth is a big buzzword out there. But a lot of software companies are really trying to drive that to get more users on their platform organically. And I think that's just the beginning of having different, more diverse people within organizations. Needing to procure software easily rather than it being centralized, purchased centrally.
Got it. And Karen, what is your viewpoint on that? The same question, that the new set of the stakeholders now becoming the buyers.
Yeah, it's I don't know. My viewpoint is that I don't think I think the personas are all there. I don't think there's some new marketplace buying persona per se. I think you've got the lines of business, you've got procurement, you've got finance. I think those all remain the same. I think to James's point, it does shift now. I think you're able to now get if you look back a few years ago, the line of business would say, hey, our CRM data is lousy. We need to enrich our CRM data. And they would say to procurement or to a research center that, hey, go find me data that can help me improve my CRM data. They would do the eval and things like that. I think what marketplaces are doing is making them more part of the process, easier and in earlier on. I also I also think that there's a macro shift that goes on depending upon the health of the macro economy, where things, particularly in tech, have slowed down. Is now particularly in big enterprise decisions, the CFO is in the room, and the CFO is in the room early. Whereas when money's, when you can borrow money at 0%, and then the CFO is not in the room and the business people are in the room. So I do see a shift in that a little bit. But I don't think the personas have really changed per se. I'm happy to be wrong at that, but that's what we see.
Got it. And I think so. It's very important to cover an interesting topic, which is Gen AI. What's the role of the Gen AI, and specifically around the profound impact in the cloud marketplaces? And Jake, maybe we'll start with you. Do you see the Gen AI will play a critical role in the future of the marketplace in terms of the transactions, in terms of the discovery, in terms of the FAQ, or even the value that is being offered?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this topic because the short answer is I absolutely see a pretty substantial role for Gen AI impacting both partner and customer experience as a marketplace. And I'll kind of give you a quick rundown of how my perspective on this. The basic structure of an e-commerce transaction and the basic experience hasn't evolved that much in like the 25 or 30 years, right? It's all right, I have something that I need. I go to a site, I search for it, I get a list of results, I compare among those results, I pick one, I put it in my cart, I transact it, I get it. And that's the model that e-commerce plays. That's the model that the marketplaces play. It was kind of that comment I made about the vending machine. As the complexity of what's being sold through the marketplace goes up, like as we are getting past just like, hey, I need, core infrastructure, but I'm into more complex line of business driven, workflows or specific use cases. I talked about that one around like the patient experience. This is an age-old thing. What the customer is looking for is the customer wants a solution. The marketplaces and the retail experience now is making them buy products. So if we can change the nature of the customer's interaction with the marketplace to be more around what problem are you trying to solve, then generative AI can do a great job at looking at patterns across other marketplace transactions and across, overall kind of B2B commerce and say, hey, people who have tried to solve that problem before in the past tended to buy this combination of product, service, hardware. And so it takes the digital experience out of being, hey, I'm going to hunt and peck through a catalog and try to cobble together what I need, and makes it much more consultative and more natural, where natural language and where the expression of, hey, here's what I'm trying to do becomes much more of the currency of like, how do I get matched to a solution? And I think that's where that has profound implications for the UX for the marketplace and also for the ease of and the convenience of it as a discovery vehicle for customers.
I think so you touch upon the point versus solution versus product. The customers are looking for the solution, but what's sold on the marketplace is a product. So I think so it's the level before the discovery, that how proactive the marketplace is able to suggest something which is relevant for the enterprise by looking at the different signals. Is that what you're aiming for?
Yes, in short.
Got it. Kieran, your viewpoint on that? I'm sure that this is an interesting question, and everyone would like to give their thoughts on the Gen AI in the role of Gen AI in the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, just on a very, into Jake's point too, is just on a very tactical level. I mean, where we see it is developing LLM powered search experience across all of, across the marketplace. I mean, that to us that's table stakes, and then where it goes from there. I mean, the conversations we have with what I would characterize as sort of pure data sellers are now are now looking at it from the standpoint of, well, I don't want to just utilize a marketplace just to list my data products. I want to wrap logic around it and to offer up the insights that data derives. And we're seeing a lot of that, and that's where we think that the Gen AI capability can facilitate that.
And Erin and James, any thoughts from your end on this one?
Yeah, look, I agree with everything everyone said. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Gen AI does, particularly around things like improve the UX and UI experience, and recommendations, these aren't new things, right? They've been around for decades. It's just the advances in technology that are making it, more attractive and making it easier for implementation. I think it definitely will improve the efficiency of marketplace and the solution and finding for people using the marketplaces, but it will also help improve the operations of people creating marketplaces as well, and make things a lot more efficient. So I think it's an exciting space, but I do think there's a lot of other things that a lot of marketplaces or people looking to make a marketplace could focus on before they look at a technology to solve a problem, before they look at some of the basics, I think.
Yeah, and I think about it from as Gen AI gets more integrated and improves that experience of what is the problem you're trying to solve. From the ISV, we have to, this is where co-sell involves. How are you co-selling in the marketplace? How do you understand how Microsoft is going to be using that technology so that you show up correctly in the marketplace and start to participate in those, your brand starts to participate in those conversations when they're saying, what problem are you trying to solve? As an ISV, if I'm partnering with Microsoft, I need to really understand that technology so that I can make sure I'm putting in my use case scenarios, how we've solved problems for customers, those success stories I told you about before, making sure you put your success stories in so that as Microsoft goes to look for that information in all of their tools and programs that they have to then surface and help the buyers in the marketplace, your data is showing up in the right places for generative AI to look for that information. So I would say from an ISV perspective, stay on top of how your cloud provider, Snowflake, Microsoft, AWS, Google, how they're using that and making sure that your brand and your information is getting feeded into it so that you stay relevant in your co-sell strategy in the marketplace.
Got it. That's interesting. And if you look at from a different angle, you touched upon the Gen AI, we see with the help of these technologies, the emergence of the specialized marketplaces going forward. And James, if we come to you, we know how OpenAI recently announced plans to launch a marketplace for AI applications. Would we see going forward these specialized marketplaces such as AI or sustainability marketplaces soon?
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely a market for that. I think AI is a complex and very fragmented, and there's new market, and there's lots of new products coming to market, and a marketplace that specializes in something like that would be really useful. However, again, it's about like Kieran mentioned before, it's about the solution that you're trying, or the problem that you're trying to solve. So I imagine that in the future, having specialized marketplaces may be less of a thing, because people are looking for a place to solve the problem in the best way rather than going directly to the solution before they understand what might be able to be the best way to solve that problem. But I definitely think within the next couple of years, there'll be marketplaces that specialize in AI for sure, and sustainability, because they're hot topics at the moment.
Jake, any thoughts around that? The specialized marketplaces, how you see that?
Oh, I just assumed everybody was going to use Microsoft for everything. So I'm not thinking at all about other places. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, of course there's going to be. You look at it from a bricks and mortar retail analogy, right? You've got retailers that sell everything, and then you've got retailers that sell just really limited and highly curated selections of of things, boutiques that specialize in individual needs, and that pattern is going to play out with this as well. I think it's going to be the role of the mass merchants like Microsoft and Google and AWS are going to be around really getting behind that value prop of kind of single invoice and consolidated spend convenience and visibility and cost management. But for really specialized use cases or for niche applications, like there will be places where there are communities and experiences that are around very specific topics that a specialist in those areas is going to be the place to go. But I think that the important thing here is that this idea of digital selling for enterprise and in B2B is only growing and will kind of, I think, evolve according to similar patterns we've seen in other retail technologies and areas in history, like we've been saying.
Got it. Now, this is interesting. I think so, as we all agree that cloud marketplaces have continuously evolved and are becoming the preferred platform for the customers to discover, purchase, and manage the applications to drive the business operations and the outcome. But the other important angle is the support function. Once they purchase a solution, about the support function, what is the role of the marketplace in the support function? Do you see that?
I guess you have to understand what type of support are you looking for in this question? What is the definition of support to the person asking the question?
So it is more about that once the solution is implemented, there could be many angles that to look at, from the professional services or the technical support, or how to adhere some of the I would say the discrepancies or something like the escalations in the use of the solution. Do you see that the support function can be provided by the marketplace going forward? Or it's only for the transactions and the selling of the solution?
I mean, my opinion on it is, and I think someone said it before, is that you want the marketplace to be this social experience, and I think in that type of environment, then yes, then the marketplace should play a role in the support function, and it should leverage the ecosystem to help provide support. Now, I think ultimately the end satisfaction of the customer lies with the provider of the application and the product and things like that. But I think where the marketplace plays a role is to create that environment where it can facilitate the triaging of the support, and you can use the ecosystem. You can have various, I don't know, for lack of it, support groups and things like that. But I don't know. My view is that the marketplaces should be playing a role in it. I don't know, at least at this point, if they should own it from beginning to end, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with Kieran on this. That I think that the marketplace could evolve to be kind of the primary point of entry for the engagement between customer and provider across the sales process and after. But I mean, look at how Amazon does this in the consumer world today, right? You buy it when you're buying a product on Amazon Marketplace. One, you're probably not even aware that it was coming through not sourced by Amazon itself, but by a marketplace provider. Like, it's so seamless. And when you want to get support for the thing or return the thing, you're going back to Amazon, and Amazon is facilitating either the kind of the commercial terms of the support as well as the logistical terms of the support. I mean, the same can happen in a B2B marketplace where, to Kieran's point, is it's a front door, right? Like, this is where you bought it. If you want to come back to do something to manage it or to get support for it, you could come here, and the marketplace could facilitate that interaction, help triage that interaction, potentially plug people in with others who experienced, may have some role to play in helping to solve the issue. But I see it as that, right? It's a point of aggregating the supply and the demand as a point of facilitation.
Got it.
I also think so. I think
Sure.
that I also just want to add, like, when I hear this question about support and marketplaces, and that, it's very product driven, and if we want to evolve to being more of what is the problem you're trying to solve, then this opens up the opportunity for traditional SI partners to come in and say, let me support you in your journey and trying to solve this problem. And we've come up with this managed service offering, and we've got a methodology along with using these tools in our toolkit that you can buy this ISV product, this ISV product. Let's bundle it all together and let me help you solve this problem. And so I think it opens up an opportunity for the services ecosystem to participate in the marketplace. And I think we will see that as the marketplace evolves over the next 3 to 5 years, more services partners coming in to try and help support the products that are being purchased and how you're solving those problems, and also starting to build that community experience and feedback.
God, no, I think so. That's an important angle to look into. And we have a couple of questions from the panel members. Anyone can answer that. The first one is,
Okay.
the marketplaces are no longer simply a route to market, but now an essential component of any tech sales organization. As per sales value chain, do you witness a marketplace with a loss of control of the deal of the customer?
Jake, what do you think?
So the question is about, are sellers going to get disintermediated by marketplace? Is that the basic of the question?
Yes.
I think, well, we talked about this some earlier. For things that are really low consideration and high volume purchases, like those are going through marketplace, will continue to go through marketplace, because just based on the kind of the nature of the transaction. I think what this does is it saves the field sales capacity for the areas where there's truly a value add, where there is more complexity, right? There's more of a complex problem to solve. So I think, in short, like, I don't think that this is a situation where, like, this digital experience is going to completely replace field sales. Like, I think that would be really naive to think that. I think it's just more of providing a path to convenience where it's a fairly commodity or low complexity sale, and then and enabling sellers to engage where there's really high value. I do not think that this is a situation where all the people in the equation are going to be replaced at all. Like, it's just a matter of providing convenience where it's warranted and high touch where it's warranted.
I also think as you start to become more born in the cloud, or you have partners that are like born in the cloud, and now we're seeing like born in the marketplace. So as you start to create your more marketplace experience, it's important to make sure that as your customers are just buying and transacting and deploying and starting to use it, that you build in your experience a way to identify those customers, reach out to those customers, and connect with them on the product on your product that they just purchased through the marketplace. So when you're looking at your journey and how you're engineering and designing that experience in the marketplace, make sure that you also include that post-sales experience so that you can stay connected to your customers that are just in there buying, transacting, and more of a self-serve model.
Great. I think so. This was an insightful discussion. Wish we could continue, but looking at the time limit, we need to end it right now. And thank you so much, all the panel members, for this insightful discussion. I'll hand it over to Peter just to close it in the next 30 seconds.
Certainly. Thank you, Rajat. And thank you to all the panelists. I've really enjoyed hearing all of your insights today. I learned a lot about what customers need and how they buy, the best practices for vendors on how to succeed selling through a marketplace, and the future direction of where these platforms are going. So I'm excited. I hope everybody else found this engaging and valuable. And I hope to see all of you at future events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the panel members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.